We made it! Tyler, it's Friday!
Yes,
Although it's Friday the 13th.
Oh, spooky. It's a very spooky show here today.
Friday the 13th in 2020.
What could possibly go wrong? I just cursed us all. Thank you. You're welcome. That's it for me.
Is there any wood in here? Some actual wood? Should you knock on wood?
I don't know.
Are you superstitious at all?
Not really. I mean, this morning I walked by a black cat under a ladder that was over a bunch of broken glass, but I think I'm in a good spot.
Good thing we're not sitting too close together then, because I will not be following you today.
I mean, I was a little concerned this morning when I heard some weird noises, but I mean, all I did was look in my mirror and say Bloody Mary 3 times.
Oh my goodness, Tyler.
I'll be here all week.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to the Friday edition of the Oakland County Megacast, and Tyler's stand-up comedy routine kicks us off on this Friday the 13th.
Boot off stage again.
Remember well, this was probably before your time, was it the Gong Show, and they had that hook?
Oh yeah.
And they could.
I'm just glad we're doing radio. It's primarily radio. It's radio on TV, because if it were TV in front of a live audience, I'd be inundated with tomatoes by now.
Well, it's great to have everyone with us for the Friday edition of the Oakland County Megacast. We made it. It just like that, the week flew by, and we do now have a winner. Supposedly in the presidential election. President Trump still not giving the old, goodbye to his position. So it seems like he may still be in a fight. The state of Michigan, still the center of that fight, as well as the lawsuits are continuing to work their ways through the court systems here in the state of Michigan. So still some interesting things to watch on the political side from the sidelines here in the state of Michigan. But obviously everyone continues to talk about the surge in COVID-19 cases here in the state of Michigan. The governor holding a press conference yesterday, again, really sending out the warning to everyone that the cases continue to surge, and this is not a good time for the state of Michigan. In fact, the numbers could be worse than what they were back in the beginning. Yeah,
I mean, she showed the graphic of case numbers in the state of Michigan over the course of the entire pandemic, and the spike that we're seeing, that exponential growth is certainly there like it hasn't been before. It's a bigger spike than what we saw in March, a bigger spike than what we saw in the middle of the summer, and it's the largest we've had so far. Now, yes, there's a lot more cases, but just the trajectory of that graph is what's really concerning.
Yeah, and also, if you go to civiccentertv.com, click on coronavirus, that's where we put the latest headlines of the day. I don't know if you also happened to catch the press conference yesterday with the CEOs of so many of our hospital systems here in the state of Michigan. Hospitalizations from COVID-19 are doubling every 2 weeks here in the state of Michigan, and leaders from the 5 health systems announced Thursday, and case numbers are growing at a rate of about 40% per week. So at that pace, we will top our late spring hospitalization peak this month. That was according to Jerry Anderson. He's the executive chairman of DT Energy, but also the leader for the Michigan Economic Recovery Council. He joined the CEOs of the 5 healthcare systems, Beaumont, Henry Ford, Spectrum, Munson, UP Health System. And really, the purpose of that was to alert the public to the growing crisis. And I think by having the CEOs of the companies up there talking about it, it kind of took the political element out of the surge that we're seeing. So if hospitals in Michigan become overwhelmed again with critically ill COVID-19 patients and don't have the staffing to care for all the people who need it, hospital leaders said they may have no other choice but to stop offering some non-emergency medical care. So at this time, they're trying to warn the public that this is very real. And we need to start taking it a lot more seriously here in the state of Michigan. And that means stay home as much as you can. We know that we are also in the middle of economic recovery in the middle of this crisis, but they are really hoping to be able to flatten the curve over the next few weeks as we head into the holiday season.
Yeah, because the holiday season is a time where a lot of people are gathering together, whether it be friends getting back together or coming back in town to visit family, or whether it be families getting together for that once a year, or one of many times a year that they get a lot of the family together to celebrate being together. And with the circumstances we're under, those are events that could very easily cause some serious issues within families regarding COVID-19. And so trying to get to flatten that curve out a little bit before that time of year, knowing that as much as you can urge people to be safe, that ultimately people are going to gather together regardless during the holidays. You want to make sure that you're not putting yourself in a position to have a surge within a surge. And if anything, it would maybe be another minor bump upward because people are gathering.
Yeah, and so yesterday the governor did encourage everyone to change their holiday plans. The governor at that press conference with the chief medical executive, Dr. Jonae Khaldun, urging Michigan residents to rein in their plans for Thanksgiving and Christmas amid the surge of COVID-19 cases. Without decisive action on the part of each Michigan resident, the state could be hitting our daily peak of deaths in Michigan come Christmas time, said the governor. Khaldun echoed the grim concerns, urged people to cancel plans with family outside of their immediate household. Whitmer said she and her administrative team are strongly considering all actions we can take to keep Michiganders safe, adding there are ongoing discussions about the next actions. I think a shutdown is going to be in our future if these numbers don't at least flatten or hold steady for a while.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that it's oncoming. Maybe it'll be a week, maybe it'll be a couple of weeks right before the holidays. But the way that the numbers are currently going, it certainly looks like a shutdown is looming once again in the state of Michigan. And this urgency regarding the holidays is definitely a sign that may be on the docket very soon, as the governor and really the health team at the state level is urging families to change their plans, modify maybe a smaller group of family, maybe not multiple households, or maybe not several households, and try to limit that, or best case scenario, not have a mixture of households at all and maybe forego it or do something virtual this year.
Yeah, and some college campuses are actually asking their students before they take off to go home for the holidays that they get a COVID-19 test and they test negative before they leave the campus, so that if they are exposed and they do test positive, they don't bring that home to their families and then basically become super spreaders, because everyone disperses to so many different other areas when they leave that college campus bubble. Businesses, now is the time. The state is sending you a warning, especially office settings, because of the 747 new or ongoing outbreaks in the state of Michigan. 39 are from offices. Only long-term living facilities, schools, manufacturing spaces, and restaurants and bars have more. So the Michigan Occupational Health and Safety Administration is inspecting offices to make sure businesses are following the emergency rules put in place. If precautions aren't followed, offices can be cited and fined up to $7,000. And this isn't new. Some businesses have already been fined because they were found to not be in compliance, but they are asking for the businesses, if your employees can work remotely, to please do so as we continue. I think that things aren't going to improve until well after the first of the year.
I would agree. If we're in this major of a spike, especially with what's been going on in our state in terms of who is making the decisions regarding COVID-19, and because it's being made at multiple levels of the government that are not politically in line with one another and are going to be butting heads, and that certainly will make these decisions take even longer when time is of the essence. I don't see a situation either where this gets any better anytime soon before it gets potentially a lot worse.
Yeah, and for anyone out there who wants to take a deeper dive into some of these numbers, you can do so. The state of Michigan actually will post them on their website. So if you go to civiccentertv.com, at the top There you'll see links to various cities and communities and organizations, and there's the state of Michigan as well as the Oakland County. You can in Oakland County you can put in your zip code to see if there have been any new and recent cases as well. And the state of Michigan right there, if you just click on that, then you can get the latest information from the state of Michigan as well. So we try to make it easy for you so that you can track the outbreaks and the numbers yourself as well. So kind of that's where we're starting this Friday show. But, you know, sometimes you just have to find a silver lining. And the silver lining in all of this is just think about how much closer you are going to be with your family, your immediate family, at the end of this pandemic. You're going to know so much more about them. You connect in new and different ways. And so always look at the silver lining, Tyler.
Yeah, it's going to be a while till we get to that point, but I do think that at the end of this, really just across the board, interacting with other people, friends, family, coworkers, whatever the case may be, it's going to be something that a lot of people are not going to take as much for granted as they did before the pandemic, knowing that something like this could that just as easily as it comes to you and you have those opportunities, they can easily go away, whether that be because you are mandated to be separated for health purposes, or because people get sick, or because people die in situations like we've been going through over the last 8 months.
We've been bringing back the board games, the old school board games, Yahtzee. Did you play that?
It's been a long time, but I have played it. Yes, I used to play Yahtzee. Yeah.
Right. So go old school.
I was always a guess who person. I was for the longest time. I was undefeated, and then when I was about 10 years old, my aunt Jane beat me in the game, and it was one of the greatest disappointments I've ever experienced in athletics or gaming.
Oh my goodness!
It was a grudge match. It was down to the final questions.
So, hey, just a reminder, of course, the Oakland County Megacast grew out of the COVID-19 crisis way back this past March. Anticipated it was just going to be a few weeks. Here we are 7+ months into this crisis, and we are continuing the Oakland County Megacast. And the reason we do so is because even though sometimes we do have interviews with some of the same people, every day, sometimes the information is changing, and businesses and newsmakers, everyone is having to continue to navigate this crisis. So that is the reason behind the Oakland County Megacast, and we're happy to continue it on this Friday. And we have a lot up on the show today. We'll be starting the show off by talking with a public relations firm here locally. So many businesses are struggling right now, but it's not the time to let your guard down. In fact, you have to communicate now, I think, more so than ever. So we'll be getting some information from the local PR firm, and I'm sure they'll have some great advice to share with people out there as well. Then we'll be dipping into politics just a little bit. We have Ryan Berman with us. He was just recently reelected to the Michigan State Representative, District 39, so it'll be good to hear from him. Then we'll be speaking with the president for the Bloomfield Hills School District, Board of Education. Schools now deciding to go remote again. So we'll talk a little bit more about that, and then we'll be rounding out the show talking about the historic Fort Wayne in the city of Detroit. We have a lot of cool things here right in our own backyard. So a lot to get to on the Friday edition of the Oakland County Megacast, but first, a quick break.
Michigan, the coronavirus pandemic has put us all to the test, and now it's time to put COVID-19 to the test. As we move forward, testing will be critical. We encourage anyone who has reason to get tested to do so, those with symptoms and those without. If you are leaving home and going back to work, get tested. If you think you may have COVID-19 or you've been exposed recently through family, friends, or coworkers, get tested. Our test locator tool can help you find the right testing site that fits your needs. Even if you're looking for easy access with no cost, no prescription, and no appointment necessary, we've got you covered. Help Michigan move forward, not backward. To find a testing site or learn more, visit michigan.gov/coronavirus test. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. Michigan, we still need to stay careful because we don't want to go backwards. back to where we started. So keep standing 6 feet apart. Keep wearing a mask in public. And if you have symptoms, talk to a healthcare provider about getting tested. To move forward, let's all do our part. So stay careful. Michigan.gov/coronavirus.
Great to have you with us on the Friday edition of the Oakland County Megacast. I'm Ronnie Dahl here in the studio, alongside the one, the Mr. Tyler Keefe, here with us on the Friday edition. As a reminder, you can catch us Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to noon, Civic Center TV, Birmingham Area Municipal Access. If you still have cable, if you have Comcast, you can find us on Channel 15, Channel 99 on AT&T, and then also, of course, if you're out driving around, catch us on the radio, 89.3 WBLD, Orchard Lake, 88.1 WBFH, in the city of Bloomfield Hills. So I want to say thank you to everyone for joining us today for the Friday edition of the Oakland County Megacast. And as a reminder, we're also streaming today's show over on my journalist Facebook page, so you can catch us there on Facebook as well. A lot to get to the first hour here. If we could, Tyler, so many businesses right now are struggling, and I am sure for a lot of the owners, they are paying very close attention to the surge in the numbers and the possibility of another potential shutdown here in the state of Michigan. State of Ohio is already talking about it as well. And for businesses, though, this is the time that you need to reach out to your customer base and communicate. Let's go ahead and bring in Lindsey Walenga with us on the Oakland County Megacast. She is the CEO for Siren PR. Thanks for being with us today.
Hi, Ronnie. Thank you for having me. Hi, Tyler.
So what advice are you giving to some of your clients right now when it comes to communication in the middle of a crisis?
Yeah, man, a lot of advice. So when the pandemic started earlier this year, we did a lot of crisis communication support for our clients around, how do you communicate these big decisions that you're making? And sometimes these decisions that are happening hour by hour by hour. So overall, the big point that we are always trying to make with our clients, the big piece of advice that we're always giving them is to communicate clearly during this time. There's so much confusion out there, so much uncertainty, that the best thing you can really do to build relationships with anyone right now, but especially your customers and your audiences, is to communicate clearly.
Yeah, and one thing is, like, maybe you make a decision and then you go public with that decision, but you have to change that decision. So when it comes to that, it can seem like there's misinformation that's being put out, when in fact you're just changing because the information is changing and the situation is changing. How can they clearly communicate when they're making those changes?
So that's a really good question. And one of the best things that you can do to be able to communicate clearly when times get as crazy as they are right now is to have communication channels that are well taken care of. So if you have social media channels that are running smoothly during normal times, if you have an email marketing system that has a healthy list that you're reaching all the people that you need to through it, if you have a website that is healthy and well taken care of, and if you're, a larger or consumer organization, if you have relationships with reporters. So if you have these communication channels that are well taken care of, then when you need to get information out, you can go straight to delivery and not have to fight fires or worry about, broken systems along the way. So that's one really important thing, is to make sure that your communication channels are running smoothly in normal times so that when you need them, they can show up for you.
Lindsey Walenga with us here on the Oakland County Megacast. She's the CEO for Siren PR over in our fine city of Royal Oak. Always great having you here on the show with us. Social media has been the lifeline for so many companies. And in some ways, this is a good time for us to be going through a pandemic because of the technology we have. How vital has social media been for a lot of your clients?
crucial, really, because it's a direct to consumer or a direct to audience communication channel. You don't have to buy advertising space. You don't have to, issue a press release and go through reporters to get your information to the people that need it. If you have your social media following built up to encompass all of your clients and the people that, the kind of people that you want to work with, your community members, you'll be able to get your information across quickly and clearly. So it has been really important for our clients and a lot of small businesses. We worked with the Royal Oak Downtown Development Authority, and they've been doing a lot of work in communicating with small businesses during this crisis. And social media has been a pivotal communication channel for effectiveness that way.
Yeah, and Lindsey, not just the clients that you're working with, but from your standpoint and your company there as well, you're a boutique PR company. How have you had to switch and change how you're operating there with your team?
So that's a good question. Thank you for asking. So we actually just went through a rebrand that we launched this week. Our name has been Siren PR for 8 years. And over the last year or so, we have decided to really level up in the way that we're positioning ourselves, because what we've done since 2012 has really been so much more than public relations. I think people think about PR synonymous to the media, but as you just discussed with social media and with really getting information across to the people that need it, it's about communication, not just public relations. So in the rebrand that we just went through this week, social media was a core component of that, and letting people know why we dropped the PR from our name, what that means, and why it's important.
Lindsey Walenga with us. She is the CEO of Siren, joining us on the Oakland County Megacast today. Lindsey, for those businesses or those nonprofits, or really anybody that is currently starting their social media outreach during the pandemic, what advice have you been giving to them, and what trends are you seeing among these companies that are working well as they're really starting to ramp up those operations now with the pandemic bringing that necessity?
When you are forced to close your doors, it's a really good time to reflect and think about the kind of stories that you want to tell. Business owners, especially small business owners, restaurant owners, they might not always feel like they have the time to do social media well or to promote themselves and project their brand image well. But when business slows down and you're forced to do that, you might feel like you have more space to do what the best business leaders out there prioritize regularly, which is reflect on your brand message. So the best thing, the first thing that you can do to have really strong communication channels, whether that's social media or your website or whatever it is to know your brand narrative, know your message, and know your audience and what they need from you, so that you can tell the stories that resonate with them. So I would encourage small business owners in Oakland County, nonprofit leaders, really anyone trying to lead an organization right now, to use this time to reflect on the message that you want to convey and what your audiences need from you.
And while we're talking about social media, it can be a great way to get positive news and your message out to the community. But unfortunately, sometimes it can also be a detriment, especially if you leave it open to comments from individuals. What advice or what do you suggest for people or businesses or nonprofits that maybe have negative reviews or negative comments on their social media in a way that makes them look like they're being open and transparent and not just shutting down negative responses from people? Yeah.
So negative comments on social media is something that brings a lot of business owners or organizational leaders stress, for sure. It feels risky to be out there communicating that way, but that's the way your people are communicating. So if your people are on Facebook or Instagram, then that's where you need to be. And how to mitigate the risk with that is to communicate clearly, communicate early, so that you are the one that tells your story. And then when you see comments start to come in, don't get into a negative back and forth with people on social media. As the brand, you want to rise above kind of the rumor mill that you might see spinning on social media in the comment sections and comment publicly on the conversation, maybe once, and then take it to private message if there are conflicts that need to be resolved. Don't ever resolve a conflict with a specific follower publicly. You want to do that privately, but make sure that you address any big concerns, like with an umbrella statement in the comment section.
I will say, for me, social media has helped me be able to reach companies directly. Like maybe if you had an issue or you had a complaint, you go through the 1-800 number or the customer service and nothing happens. But if you tweet them and tag them, I've been pretty successful, and I know other people that I work with, former reporters, did the same thing. Especially if you have a larger number of followers, then it can help resolve the issues as well. But of course, one of the things you want to do is make sure you follow up with a positive retweet saying, hey, thank you for addressing my concern. But from a consumer standpoint, social media can really be a great avenue for you to be able to get a problem addressed.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And, a function of that, or what makes that possible, is if a company has a well-organized and responsive marketing and communication team, and which is the mark of a well-organized company. So if you're hitting roadblocks with customer service and you use social media to voice your concerns and you get a response quickly, that actually is testament to the quality of that company, because that means that they have their marketing department, their communication department running well. And I would say, it's not necessarily on the consumer to say this was resolved well. That's a beautiful gift that you can give a company. But the company should be able to just, know that this is a way that we have to communicate with and respond to our consumers. So yeah, it's definitely a benefit to consumers these days.
Do you still have some of the small companies or small nonprofits that maybe don't understand the power of social media? Because I come across, especially like a newer company, and if they don't have a Facebook page or an Instagram page, which is all free, then I question the legitimacy of that company.
Oh, yeah, that's a really good point. So if a business doesn't have a Facebook page, are they credible and legitimate? Definitely having well taken care of, current, relevant website and social media channels are fundamental to building credibility for your company, knowing your message, conveying it clearly over those channels. I would say, though, that it's not necessarily the small businesses that I see that don't understand that. I think that people starting and running businesses these days, I generally see that they do understand the power of social media. They just might need our help in figuring out how to do it. Where I see a little bit more resistance is in the larger, older organizations who might have one or two innovative leaders at the top, but are meeting resistance on, changing the way that they're investing their marketing or advertising dollars more toward the digital side, because it's a change from what they've done for decades past.
Yeah, I used to be the public information officer for the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives here in the state of Michigan. And there's nothing about having pretty much almost no one in there in leadership even knew what social media was. Like, they didn't understand. And we could only have Twitter. We couldn't even have the other platforms because it was a DOJ mandate. And it was like, it's Twitter. You don't, Twitter someone, you tweet someone. I mean, it was comical almost. But they didn't really understand. You have so many people that can be in these leadership positions who do not understand or grasp the power of social media, and not just in a negative way, but also the positive way into which you can utilize that social media to help reach the community.
It really is. Social media and all the other communication channels are really important to be able to do well as an organization, no matter what kind of organization you have. These are modes of communicating. And, our decisions and our product offerings and our services are really only as good as our effectiveness in communicating about them. It's okay if leaders don't understand all of the potential there, but hopefully they would have someone like you on their team who they're willing to listen to and take advice from. I think that's the mark of a good leader, is being able to surround yourself with people that know more than you.
So, Lindsey, knowing that and knowing right now so many companies are still trying to navigate this crisis that COVID-19 has become, and 7 months into it, if businesses are struggling with their bottom line, when should they know to invest some of that money into hiring a firm such as yours to help them with their communications?
It's different for every business. It's really, I wouldn't venture to say how much and at what exact point you should choose to invest your hard-earned money, except to say that there's never a wrong time to prioritize communicating well with your audiences. So every business has a unique situation, but we have had several clients this year who have chosen to prioritize tightening up their brand message and communicating more effectively through a partnership with us while they were forced to, reflect and take some downtime during kind of the height of these peaks. It is a good time when you are not running all over the world, trying to serve your clients everywhere, to prioritize your own communication channels and brand.
So knowing that social media has definitely changed and the platforms continue to change, what if someone is somewhat new, or maybe they had a Facebook and they don't update it, now they're saying, okay, I need to get back into this game because this pandemic is going to continue, so let me refocus my energy on communications. What advice do you have for some of these businesses on trying to understand the difference between the various social media platforms and which one and how they should utilize them?
So to figure out which social media channels or platforms you should be on, the most important thing to ask yourself is, who is my audience? And that's the most important thing to ask yourself first when you're communicating anything in any situation, whether that's interpersonal or business. Who is my audience? Who am I trying to connect with? And then where are they? So, there's a lot of research out there on the good old Google machine about which platforms, veer more toward millennials or baby boomers. You can find that information out with some, light searching, but you have to think about who your audience is and where they are. And then that is where you should put your efforts. I would say stay away from trying to do all of it and focus your efforts, especially in these uncertain times, on communicating clearly with the most important people for your brand.
So TikTok is not the same as Facebook. So what you do for TikTok, don't do for Facebook, and Instagram is different than Twitter. That's what we tried to share with everyone. Lindsey Walenga with us here on the Oakland County Megacast. She is the CEO of Siren, a strategic communication firm here in the Metro Detroit area. And Lindsey, before we let you go here on the Oakland County Megacast, anything we didn't touch on that you want to share with our listeners and our viewers?
Thank you. Yes, I would say that the most important thing that you can do to strengthen relationships with your customers, your clients, your team, all of your stakeholders right now during this really wild, unpredictable, and stressful time is to communicate clearly with them. In team meetings, when you're announcing big news, when you are sharing stories of how you're getting through the pandemic over social media, when you're letting people know about decisions you've made related to your business, communicate clearly. And in order to do that, do it early, do it often, and be transparent. When you give people the facts, most of the time they rise to the occasion.
Great advice for all of us to listen to, whether or not we're business owners or not. People should remember that as an individual, you really have a brand as well. So take that advice to heart. Lindsey, thank you so much for being with us. We appreciate your time.
Thank you so much for having me.
Tyler and I are going to take a quick break here on the Oakland County Megacast.
Michigan, we're calling on you to save lives. Don't ignore it. Don't let it go to voicemail. It's urgent. In fact, it's critical. Because if you've been in close contact with someone who tests positive for COVID-19, you may have been exposed to the virus. And you could get a call from My COVID Help or your local health department. So please answer the call to learn how to protect yourself, your family, and friends. We're calling on you to stop the spread of COVID-19. to make it safe to reopen businesses and help Michigan move forward. So if you get a call from My COVID Help or your local health department, you may have been exposed to someone with COVID-19. To protect us all, answer the call. Learn more at michigan.gov/containcovid. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jonae Caldoon. I'm the Chief Medical Executive for the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. The people who are at highest risk of getting severely ill from COVID-19 are the elderly and those with chronic medical conditions. That includes people with heart disease, diabetes, COPD, or those who have compromised immune systems. People who are in those categories should right now be staying at home as much as possible and not going out if it is not essential. If you fit into one of those categories, those are the things you should do. And if you have a family member who fits into one of those categories, you should be checking in on them and making sure they are following those guidelines. There's something everyone can do to protect the community from COVID-19.
Great to have you with us on the Friday edition of the Oakland County Megacast, Friday the 13th, 2020. It's going to be an interesting day if you are a superstitious individual. If not, maybe, though, the world could be, since we're already flipped upside down, maybe today it'll be a good luck day.
Right, yeah, go walk under a couple ladders, see what happens.
See what happens. Hey, turning the focus a little bit to politics right now, we are, a week or so plus out of the election, and it's still falling out and still being hotly debated. Joining us now on the Oakland County Megacast is going to be Max Rothbart. He's a law student at the University of Detroit Mercy School of Law, but you also ran for the county commission seat for District 13. You did lose, but I will say you're very involved in the Republican Party. What did the election teach you?
Well, like most Republicans throughout the night, I actually had a 1,200 vote lead at the end of election night going into early election morning. And then like Republicans, I saw that lead slowly shrink and shrink and shrink and shrink. It was under 1,000, it was a couple hundred, then I was down by a couple hundred, then I was down by a couple thousand. And at the end of the day, it was just clear that I wasn't going to win, so I conceded. So like many Republicans, I saw that red mirage effect. I knew it was sort of happening. I could tell that only 1/3 of the vote was in based on the history of my district. But, it was kind of interesting. I was the first Republican to actually win on Election Day. So that was kind of an interesting experience for me.
What made you get interested in politics?
Well, I've always been into the process. In 2008, I sort of had a high school project of pick which presidential candidate you liked. I picked Mitt Romney because I was a huge fan of the Olympics at the time. And then slowly I started to get more and more involved in politics. 2010, I ran for precinct delegate, got elected to that. And I've been involved in the Republican Party ever since. I ran in 2016 for county commission, but lost in the primary by about 150-ish votes.
So can you tell us, as someone who has been a delegate, what is that process like and what are you responsible for? Give us a behind the scenes, a peek behind what you do.
Well, as a Republican delegate, you sign a paperwork. It's called an affidavit to run for precinct delegate. You sign it, you get it notarized, you send it into the county. Once they get that form, you're on the ballot. It's one of the lowest ranking positions, literally at the very bottom of your August primary ballot. Each precinct has their own delegates, both Republican and Democrat. And the way Michigan election law works is there's some offices that aren't on the primary ballot, like Secretary of State, Attorney General, Michigan Supreme Court. So precinct delegates, they meet in these conventions and they decide the nominees of those offices. And then after the election, they decide on new party offices. We look at state party chair, county party chair, these Republican leaders. These are people usually selected either by precinct delegates or people elected by precinct delegates.
One of the things with this past election, we had a record number of people come out and vote. As someone who, you're in your 20s, I still believe, right, Max?
Yep, 29.
So, and that's great, but as someone who is a part of that younger generation, and there was such a huge turnout of young voters in this election, what do you want people to know about the whole process? And are you excited to see so many people take part in the democratic process?
Oh my gosh, it was absolutely amazing. You see 150, 160 million people voting, a record for both the winning candidate, Joe Biden, being president-elect, and losing Donald Trump. You saw that amazing enthusiasm and turnout on both sides. You just saw that amazing energy. And I really hope, no matter what happens in the aftermath, that these newer voters stay involved in the process and maybe get a little bit of research into some of these down-ballot races to see that maybe, not all Republicans are evil or all Democrats are evil. You can kind of split your take and pitch which candidate you wanted.
And kind of piggybacking off of what you just said, it's we had a very contentious election locally on the state side, as well as for the presidential election as well. What has been your take about that whole process of the, attack ads, or do you think that our country can come together coming out of this? Because you are a Republican. I believe they're having a big Trump march in D.C. tomorrow with some of his supporters. What's your thoughts on all of this?
Well, I actually am kind of, there's been sort of rumor mills in the Republican Party for years about Democrats cheating, voter fraud, that kind of thing. I'm really happy these sort of allegations can be heard in a court of law rather than on social media. You heard about earlier the benefits of social media for business, your platform, but in terms of politics, it can be very toxic on social media with these rumors going around on how an election is rigged or stolen. So having these complaints heard in a court of law where you can look at both sides equally and have an independent fact finder make a determination of what's real and what's not is actually sort of refreshing. And I kind of like that rather than, sniping from the sides, they're actually, going through the process. And so far, I haven't seen any evidence of voter fraud at all. There's been, a couple things that I've questioned, but that's not enough to throw the election in doubt, at least in Michigan.
And with that, Max, you are a law student right now as well. Has to be an exciting time to be a law student and also watch some of these lawsuits make their way through the court process here in Michigan.
Oh my gosh, it's amazing. These election lawsuits, they're coming from all sides. You have some very high quality lawsuits that are coming in, one that went to the Supreme Court, sort of like, this debate. It's a really interesting legal environment, especially with the pandemic going on right now. Obviously, I'm a law student. I can't comment on the law itself, but, I've been involved in elections since 2012. I've been a precinct worker, an election inspector working the polls on election day. So I'm very familiar with the machinations of how an election administration works. And to actually see that process being played out, I was watching the Wayne County Circuit Court, Third Circuit, hear a case about election law and how the Wayne County canvass should be stopped. And over 4,000 people were watching that case, that oral argument live. So it's amazing to see so many people interested in the process of the nitty-gritty of election law.
Max Rothbart with us on the Oakland County Megacast. He's a law student at the University of Detroit Mercy School of Law, and he also ran for District 13 Commissioner on the Oakland County Board of Commissions in the 2020 election. So, Max, having seen the election process from multiple angles, how confident should the people in Oakland County, in your district, in your precinct, how confident should they be in our local election processes to be done properly and to be done safely, protecting each person's vote from your angle, from what you've seen?
Oh, 150% confident in the process. The Department of Homeland Security recently released a memo yesterday saying that this was the most secure election in American history. Absolutely, there's amazing checks and balances. Before the election starts, there's testing that occurs of all the equipment, all the tabulators. During the election, you have precinct inspectors of both parties. You have challengers from both parties observing the process. And then after the election, you have this canvassing process, which lasts 20 days, where they literally go over each and every single number and make sure that it's accurate, make sure that it's good. And sometimes you see the vote change a little bit in this canvassing process. That's why, the media hasn't called states like Georgia or North Carolina, because sometimes those shifts in the canvassing process can actually shift who's winning or losing in a race. Like, for example, in Michigan 2016, the media did not declare Michigan for Donald Trump until November the 28th, when the result was certified by the State Board of Canvassers. So Michigan voters can be 150% confident. Now, all the clerks in my district, they all do an absolutely amazing job. Bloomfield Township, West Bloomfield, and Farmington Hills, absolutely amazing staff at all levels. They've answered all my questions and definitely gave all the information that they could to the voters.
Do you plan to run for office again?
Well, there's one of my platforms is redistricting reform, and it's going to be a completely different district going into 2022. The Democrats have been running on platforms, of anti-gerrymandering. We want fair maps. They passed Proposal 2 in 2018. That was a huge movement to end redistricting in Michigan, or that gerrymandering. But at the county commission level, county commissioners can still redistrict their own districts. And with the Democrats having a one-seat majority still on the county commission, it's going to be interesting to see if the Democrats can actually be democratic in how they draw the maps versus, doing the same gerrymandering and simply ping-ponging back and forth on which party is the most undemocratic of the two.
Max, as we mentioned earlier, this has been such a divisive election. I wonder what it's been like for you as an individual who actually ran for office. Did you run into that as well with just, getting into discussions or debates with individuals that were maybe had different political views than yours?
Well, I've been a moderate in the party for a long time, so I'm very used to standing my own ground, both in the party and outside the party. And me and Marsha Gershenson had very good communication throughout the whole campaign. We talked to each other, we called each other, and made sure that we were, having somewhat of a civil dialogue. I was able to call her to concede after the election. We've texted back and forth. So it really is, a very civil process between us, and that's not exactly rare. In Utah, actually, both gubernatorial candidates, Republican and Democrat, recorded a PSA together telling individuals to come together. My main fight mainly has been educating people on how the election administrative process works. There was a poll that said 70% of Republicans don't trust the process of the election, that it was fair. So what I've been doing is trying to educate as many voters as possible in the aftermath of this election that, yes, there's numerous checks and balances. What they do in Texas or Georgia or any other state is different than what we do in Michigan. Each state runs their own election. So if there's a problem in one state, it's very unlikely to affect the other states.
And Max, what do you think about what happened downtown Detroit at the TCF Center? I know you weren't there, but seeing the challengers on TV trying to get into the center to challenge some of the votes, what did you think about that entire process? Just your take.
I think it was amazing what the city of Detroit did. They made their protest session. It was so easy to say, hey, look, all these people are causing trouble. Let's take them all out of the room and just do the count. No, they allowed the election challengers to stay, the ones that were already in the room, one person per precinct for the Republicans, Democrats, and nonpartisan party. There were international election observers actually in Detroit. That came out after from the cooperation organization in Europe. They actually sent observers to observe the TCF count, and they saw no election irregularity. These are international experts who have observed thousands of elections all over the world, and they determined no irregularity. It's kind of interesting. In Detroit, they were counting stop the count, stop the count, stop the count when they were ahead. But in Arizona, where Trump was behind and until yesterday, still had a chance to win the state, they were saying count the votes, count the votes, count the votes. So it's very clear there hasn't really been a united message from the Trump campaign determining on how they handle election security and how they want to approach this litigation and other strategy of post-election activities.
So as you said, you're a moderate. What's it been like for you as a member of the Republican Party with some of your beliefs and seeing how divisive this entire campaign has been run?
Divisive politics is nothing new in America. In the election of 1800, John Adams was seen, as a blumbering fool and all this thing. And John Adams' campaign called Thomas Jefferson a bunch of head chopping off revolutionaries. So, there's always been this sort of hostility in American politics. You're seeing this now, especially because there used to be, a single media environment that was controlled only by a few. But with social media now, there are so many different viewpoints. So you're starting to see that, historically partisan come back into American political discussion. We'll just have to see how the parties handle it going into certification and the future Biden administration.
What advice would you give to other people that are maybe considering running for local politics?
Oh, it's surprisingly easy to do. there's over 1,000 Republican slots in Oakland County for precinct delegate, for example, where individuals could, run to fill those spots and represent the Republican Party and the Republican voters in the precinct to, have their own vision of what they want the Republican or Democratic parties to be. There's also, a lot of vacant seats. Birmingham School Board, I believe in 2018, had a seat that was filled by a write-in candidate because there weren't enough people who filed to be on the ballot. Many times it's just simply getting your foot in the door. And, even for me, a losing candidate, I'm still a member of the Oakland County Executive Committee for the Republican Party for the next 2 years. So even if you lose an election, there's still benefits to to competing in the election process and being involved. Most of these offices are uncontested anyway. So there's nothing wrong with putting your name on the ballot and being active in your community.
Yeah, and plus, the education that you're learning by participating has to be invaluable. And I'm wondering, what was it like for you to have to try to campaign and raise donations in the middle of a pandemic when you really couldn't do it the old-fashioned way?
Well, it was really tough. I decided early on that I couldn't campaign door to door because, if I got sick or if a voter got me sick by accident, I started spreading out. The number one concern isn't me winning or losing. It's keeping the members of the community safe. So I've had to do almost a digital campaign. I had to fill out multiple surveys. And really, I just sort of, I did surprisingly well for a Republican in my district. I live in a solid Democratic district. Marsha Gershenson has been an incumbent for the past 12, 16 years around that area. So I really had to virtual campaign. So I couldn't really go door to door. Asking donations was tough. So, it kind of was just a strange campaign. I think you see that in that the county commission didn't really change a lot. The Republicans kept all their seats. The Democrats kept all their seats. And I feel it really was from the difficulty of campaigning.
Max Rothbart with us. He is a law student at the University of Detroit Mercy School of Law, joining us on the Oakland County Megacast. And Max, in your election race against Marsha Gershenson for the 13th district seat on the Oakland County Board of Commissioners, you talked about the relationship that you and Marsha Gershenson had during the campaign and continue to have. What advice do you have for other political candidates in those holding office to be able to maintain similar kinds of relationships with people across the aisle that maybe they've ran against or maybe that they are even governing with, to be able to have those kinds of civil conversations that benefit ultimately our community by bringing the heads of leaders of different opinions and different backgrounds together to have conversations on issues that affect everybody that is served?
Well, I think you have to learn how to differentiate when your political position is being attacked versus when you are personally being attacked. Like, for example, if you're drawing yourself a contrast between what you are as a candidate versus what your opponent is as a candidate versus, attacking them personally. You see it sometimes in closer elections. You saw it a lot in the senatorial race, all those campaign ads on TV. In the local newscast, constantly, John James did this, John James didn't do that, Gary Peters did this, Gary Peters didn't do that, Trump is great, Trump is evil, Biden is great, Biden is evil. You saw those ads, and that was because, it was very close. But in most of these elections, all you have to do is really reach out to your opponent. You can send them an email, give them a call. And, a lot of times that communication, even if you have maybe an intense policy debate or you attack your opponent based on a position they've taken previously, if you have that communication open, there's that thing after the election where you can come together and try to find substantive policy agreements.
Max, have you had any mentors during this process to help foster your interest in the political process?
Oh my gosh, absolutely. There's tons of people. I mean, for one, Chuck Moss, he recently won Shelley Todd's seat on the county commission. He's been a real help. He was one of my professors in the university, brought one of my favorite books, The Moon is a Harsh Mistress. I mean, absolutely legend. There's a ton of other individuals. I was involved in the Rick Snyder campaign 2010. There's so many individuals who were involved in that campaign. And, just being involved, I remember, Mike Bishop, we've talked a lot. And it's just, there's this amazing amount of people. And, I got a conversation with Democrats too. I try to reach out to both sides, not stay constrained in one social media bubble. So I have enormous relationships with many Democrats across the aisle, and I try to keep those relationships intact by sharing areas we agree with, areas we disagree with, and just having, those civil discussions, sometimes in private, to see where we can find areas of agreement.
How do you try to encourage the next generation to step up and get involved?
Well, mainly, I think it's just individuals, there needs to be a more positive message about politics. It's not all bad. It's not all evil. It's really a way where you can get involved in your community. These township boards, for example, they might be Republicans or Democrats, but very rarely do partisan issues like abortion, gun control, some of these really hot button wedge issues become involved. Most of the time they're debating, a new cable TV contract. Sometimes they're debating, how much parks money, library, there's all these different things. Most of these partisan wedge issues you're seeing on the cable news, these aren't discussions that local government is talking about. I mean, if you look at the Oakland County Commission, it's split 10, 11 Democrat, Republican, but you still see this enormous areas of bipartisan cooperation where they agree on the budget, where they agree on most of these resolutions, and maybe there's a couple issues they set aside to disagree on. But the vast majority of decisions are almost universal bipartisan agreement.
So, Max, as we mentioned, you are a law student right now at the Detroit Mercy School of Law. What's it been like for you outside of politics, just trying to balance your studies remotely right now? Are you having any in-person classes at all?
No, we're not having any in-person classes. The University of Detroit Law School, generally law school buildings, they're smaller, some part campus, and it's just really tough to maintain, the social distancing guidelines. And, with generally older members of faculty who are more susceptible to COVID-19, the more serious conditions. So the law school decided very early in June, actually, a couple months, that we are going to transition to all virtual learning until this pandemic becomes safer for us to navigate. And really what it did is it helped the professors transition into a more virtual learning. And, it's still trial and error. We kind of had experiments in the spring, but, the professors and the administration have really come along to help students transition into this all virtual learning. And, hopefully in the summer semester, maybe even later in the spring semester, we can start transitioning more to in-person learning. It's a lot easier to transition from virtual to in-person than it is from in-person to virtual.
Well, Max, we so appreciate your time and having, making time for us here on the Oakland County Megacast. It's great to talk with you and get your perspective as well. Quickly, when do you graduate law school?
Spring, summer is when I'm going to graduate from law school, 2021, then take the bar and hopefully pass it.
Well, and hopefully by that time, the bar, you will not have to take it virtual. We've heard nightmare stories from individuals that have had to do that this year. So hopefully when you're ready to take the bar, you'll be able to do it in person. But we wish you the best of luck going forward. And again, thank you for your contribution and being a part of the political process. Even if you didn't win, you still came out a winner because of the education that you gained through this process as well. So thank you for your time.
Yep, thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your show.
Thank you. Tyler and I are going to take a quick break here on the Oakland County Megacast. And when we come back, we'll continue the political discussion. Ryan Berman is going to be with us on the show. He was just recently reelected to District 39. This is the Oakland County Megacast.
Hi, I'm Dr. Faust, the medical director for the Oakland County Health Division. The most important thing you can do to prevent the spread of illness is to wash your hands thoroughly and often. Follow these 6 easy steps every time you wash your hands. Step 1, turn on the sink and wet your hands with warm water. Step 2, apply soap to your hands and lather between your fingers, under your nails, and the front and back of your hands and wrists. Step 3, wash your hands by scrubbing them together for at least 20 seconds. Step 4, rinse your hands with warm, clean water. And step 5, dry your hands with a clean cloth towel, a paper towel, or hot air blow dryer. If you're using a cloth towel, make sure to change it often. For handheld faucets, turn off the water using a paper towel instead of your bare hand. Step 6, if you're using a paper towel, throw it away. Practice healthy habits like washing your hands after coughing or sneezing into them to keep you and others healthy. Go to oakgov.com/health or call Nurse on Call at 1-800-848-5533 to learn more.
Michigan, the coronavirus pandemic has put us all to the test. And now it's time to put COVID-19 to the test. As we move forward, testing will be critical. We encourage anyone who has reason to get tested to do so, those with symptoms and those without. If you're leaving home and going back to work, get tested. If you think you may have COVID-19 or you've been exposed recently through family, friends, or coworkers, get tested. Our test locator tool can help you find the right testing site that fits your needs. Even if you're looking for easy access with no cost, no prescription, and no appointment necessary, we've got you covered. Help Michigan move forward, not backward. To find a testing site or learn more, visit michigan.gov/coronavirus test. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
Great to have you with us on the Friday edition of the Oakland County Megacast. I'm Ronnie Dahl here in the studios alongside Tyler Keefe. As a reminder, you can catch us right here Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to noon. Catch us on Civic Center TV, Birmingham Area Municipal Access, Channel 15 if you have Comcast, Channel 99 if you have AT&T. And again, as a reminder, if you're out driving around, you can also catch us in the radio, in the car, 89.3 WBLD Orchard Lake, 88.1 WBFH, and Bloomfield Hills. And then today, we are also live streaming today's edition of the Oakland County Megacast on my Facebook page, on my journalist page, so you can catch us over there as well, which basically means, Tyler, we're everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
We're not just focused on Oakland County. We are focused on the state of Michigan as well as the entire nation, because COVID-19 is a crisis that is continuing and it has no borders. But it has definitely been an interesting election cycle to go through the latest election in the middle of this national crisis. And joining us now on the Oakland County Megacast is our Michigan State Representative for the District 39, Ryan Berman, with us. Congratulations on your reelection.
Thank you. Thanks for having me here this morning.
What was this election cycle like for you compared to the first time you ran and in the middle of a pandemic?
Yeah, it's, obviously it's been quite an interesting year, quite an interesting time throughout the past year, with a pandemic, being a freshman legislator. Politics, and I think what we've seen overall over the past few years, and since Donald Trump got elected president in 2016, and from then it was just people's, and I'm not going to blame the president for this, but he wasn't the typical politician, right? I think that's one of the reasons he got elected in the first place. He was an outsider. And kind of the story of when we talk about this, and now this presidential election, his in 2020, of the stories being out there, is when he first decided to run back in 2015 or whenever it was, a lot of people, myself included, was like, Donald Trump is running for president? That's a joke, right? Is that a publicity stunt? And we saw it dominating the headlines back then of, well, is he really in it? Kind of like, when Kid Rock said he was going to run for Senate, and it ended up, at John James, and like, is Kid Rock really going to run for the Senate? And it happened to be a publicity stunt, a tour, and selling merchandise and making money off of it.
Although I think he would have been elected if he would have actually ran.
Yeah, well, look what happened. Trump ended up getting elected president when people thought it was a publicity stunt. People thought it was a joke. But, his message resonated. Not to mention that, his opponent, Hillary Clinton, had a lot of baggage, if you will, and people were sick of the, politics as usual. I think a lot of people were sick of the PC culture, and Trump spoke and said how it was. And, a lot of people voted for him, I think the first time and even this time, because he wasn't a politician, because it wasn't really about the person, but about his, priorities, his policy, his positions. And you had it when certain things came out of, with locker room talk. Well, we're not voting for him to date our daughters. We're voting for him to clean up the mess in Washington. And, with that, it's something of saying, hey, it got so nasty. The attacks kept coming and coming. I mean, he was being attacked from before day one, whether warranted or not. I mean, listen, he doesn't do himself any favors and over the past few years, but the negative publicity and the constant negative media attention just really turned a lot of people off. I mean, it was just overwhelming, damaging. And you have late night talk shows that literally just turned into the Donald Trump, ripping tour. I mean, that's all they did every night, is just made jokes and just ripped on him like it was their mission. And they were focused. And some people say they have, Trump derangement syndrome. People were focused on this, and we see it now of what's going on with this reelection. I knew it was going to be close because you had a lot of people out there that supported him. I mean, look, we have record turnout. We have, it's tight. But I don't want to talk about Trump, but really that really goes into about how nasty things are and how divided our country is getting. People ask me, why now? Why are you involved?
Yeah, because Ryan, I will say, sorry to interrupt you, but boy, the attack ads against you were pretty fierce. So it seems like it did trickle down into the state of Michigan because we are such a battleground state here. What was it like for you the second time around? Because like you said, here you are, still pretty much new to the political process, still trying to get your feet and learn all of the ins and outs of being an elected leader. You run for re-election, and the political ads against you were pretty fierce. Like, you couldn't turn on the TV without seeing one here in our area. What was that like for you to run for re-election, and did it kind of sour you at all to the process?
Yeah, you know what? It did. It did. I mean, that's what I don't like, the politics of politics, if that makes sense. I got in it because people don't want to experience that. They don't want to be unfairly, negatively attacked, constant barrage of attacks when they're just trying to do the right thing. I got in it to do the right thing, to do good for everybody, to work across that aisle. I mean, all of my bills, bipartisan, working across. I'm like one of the only Republicans that work very well and across the aisle with Democrats. And to see that, and to see colleagues of mine, go out there actively campaigning against me, it's like, how do you like if Tyler is out there actively trying to get you fired, and you just have sitting there working with him? It's an interesting thing, and I think maybe that's kind of what's messed up about our system. And we're expected to go back to Lansing and work together, and I will, absolutely. I mean, hey, listen, they didn't, I won, so nothing off my back. I mean, but at the end of the day, that constant barrage, it's disheartening. And when I would talk to my colleagues, and they're like, hey, Berman, we like you, but it's politics. We need your seat. Nothing against you personally. We need you. So they say, hey, it's not personal, it's politics. But then when it goes and it gets personal, and they try dragging your wife, your kids, or trying to do some kind of character assassination, and which goes beyond into the ridiculous. It's like, no, now this is getting personal. Now it's wrong. You're either, and some people are out there are, hey, the ends justify the means. Any means necessary to get their end result. And that's not what I'm about. That's not what a lot of people are about. The means matter. Even right now, when you're looking at talking about these recounts and vote discrepancies or something like that, which I'm getting a barrage of calls and emails on, it's not about the end result. It's about the process, to make sure we have a fair, transparent process to get the correct winner, to get the correct result. But what's really, upsetting about what becomes of politics and these negative attacks is, it's one thing to attack my stand or my vote on a certain issue. It's another thing when it's mischaracterized. Okay, I'll still explain. I would rather be attacked for something I did than something I didn't do, when there's a lot of lies and just blatant falsehoods that were put out there and mailed and constant in text and saying, oh, Rep. Berman voted against this. And they'll even reference a bill number. And I'm like, wait, I didn't vote against that. Was there some unintended consequence of this bill? And I would look up a bill, And one of them saying, I didn't vote to lower prescription drug costs or something. And I looked up the bill. Not only did the bill not have a vote, it never even had a hearing. It was just a flat out lie that they're throwing out there to try to sway voters. I think that's wrong. In the real world, it's, there's defamation, and here it's just politics. I don't think politics should be like that.
Yeah, and knowing that, as you continue to go back into Lansing and continue to try to work, the governor right now is calling on lawmakers to make some decisions regarding the increase of COVID-19 cases here in the state of Michigan. I know one of her big pushes right now seems to be for lawmakers to pass a bill mandating masks. What are your thoughts on that issue?
So, yeah, I mean, getting that as well as trying to say that I've, tried to stymie the governor and hamper her ability to unilaterally, make her mandates. And absolutely I did. I mean, we have a separation of powers for a reason. We have a legislature for a reason. We have lawmakers, law enforcers, and it wasn't up to her to just have unilateral power to declare whatever she wanted, whenever she wanted, and especially when a lot of that was arbitrary. When you're talking about moving forward, even after the Supreme Court struck her down, the next day, Oakland County Health Department put their own mandates in place, put their own mask mandate, put their own provisions on limiting and kept the limit on capacities of establishments. That was followed by the state health department. And a lot of people are angry that that state health department continued on when they were also named as a lawsuit in the initial litigation that led to the Supreme Court ruling. With that, nothing has really changed from when, whether you agree with her or not, it shouldn't have been up to her. Nothing really has changed. People know what the coronavirus is. People know how you can get it, how it spreads, what type of behaviors that you should do of physical distancing, washing your hands, being careful, wearing a mask. A lot of people want a mask mandate and half the people don't. I believe in individual responsibility. It's up to you and up to an individual to be responsible. If an establishment won't let you in without a mask, then it's your choice not to go to that establishment or put on a mask. You know what's out there. Just like it's somebody, if they don't want to be in potential contact with others, wear their mask if they think that's effective. Wash their hands, wear gloves, take appropriate safety measures for yourself. Mandating shutdowns, mandating these things, which I believe, coming from the government, has constitutional concerns. I don't think that's the appropriate response. I believe in individual rights and responsibility, but with that, you have to be mindful of others, not invade their personal space, and be a good member of society. So if it makes somebody feel better or you're going to be around people, yeah, maybe wear a mask. I don't know what the current studies, and I saw something posted of the statistics of countries and states with mask mandates and without, and we still the same type of curvature and spikes going on there. I think you have to be foolish a little bit to think that a little cloth mask is going to protect you from a virus. Will it slow and stop the sputum and spit? Yeah, kind of like a net in catching fish. It could help. The problem is that people think that the government's there to, dictate every part of their life, and that's really not what it is. The government is there to ensure your rights, is ensure your freedom and your liberty, and you can't forget that.
Ryan Berman with us. He's the state representative for District 39, the Michigan House of Representatives, and Representative Berman, with the governor's powers being struck down by the Supreme Court, being ruled unconstitutional, and that power now also being rested within the state government, either at the level of the Health and Human Services Department and or that of the House of Representatives and the Senate and the legislature. Have there been any discussions in Lansing at the Capitol, on one side of the aisle, on both sides of the aisle, about any further actions to currently or measures to be taken at the state level, and if any, what has been discussed?
Yeah. So what the House Republicans had went through, and they're still going through data and talking to some experts, but put together a plan that had the statewide kind of framework of, hey, how many cases per million? And I don't have it in front of me, but that was like a baseline or a threshold of what we've seen over the past few months and what we don't want to get past, based off of hospital capacity, death rate, case transmission rate, all these factors. And basically what the plan said, it was kind of like a reverse. Not when you reach a certain level do restrictions happen, but once you go under that level, that at a countywide level, and the county health department can end up loosening these type of restrictions. So whatever was in place now, let's say it was 50% capacity of an establishment. Hey, once you get under these thresholds, you can loosen it up and maybe be at 75% or 100% capacity. Then if those cases and stuff still rise, you have to go back to that baseline. So it's kind of like a reverse of kind of what you've seen. The fact of the matter is, and throughout the whole time, is Governor Whitmer never shared her data to support her decisions. She always said, hey, I have this data. The legislature doesn't have the data that I do. And I always said, one, why don't we have the data you do? And two, why aren't you sharing? And she still refuses to share that data. And that's why our COVID Oversight Committee has subpoenaed a lot of this in records. Even now, though, you're hearing these case spikes. Of course, cases are going up when you're testing. A lot of people are getting tested now that have to, not because they're sick, whether it's to go into school, go into their work. People are asymptomatic. The virus has already gone through our most vulnerable population, and now it's going through the rest. You're not going to get rid of the virus. People think, oh, we have another shutdown. The virus is still going to be out there. Unless we have a shutdown, and everybody shut down and nobody can go out to contain that virus, and we shut our borders down and nobody's ever allowed to come back into Michigan or out, that's one way to contain it. Otherwise, it's impossible. We're never going to stop the virus. Though, remember the whole thing about the shutdowns was not to overwhelm our hospital capacity? Governor Whitmer kept moving the goalposts. Oh, now it's to this, now it's to cases. The same metrics apply. We need to worry about our hospital capacity and our death rate. Death rate has been down. If it's starting to go back again, and I saw on the news this morning, oh, the hospital capacity, hospitals are saying, oh, we're jumping up 150% from last week. Well, I know one of the hospitals had 3 patients. So that means, oh, what? They're at 4 now? 5? You can't look at the percentages. You have to look at the overall numbers. And at the end, very end of the news story, it said, oh, well, hospitalizations, capacity, that's not what we're worried about. When they spent 5 minutes talking about that's what they're worrying about. I think that's strange. You have to look into these numbers and not just be frightened with some statistics. You got to look down into the data and what are we really worried about? What is the goal? I think the goal all along was not to stop a viral spread. It was to make sure anybody that does get sick has the ability to be treated with that and isn't turned away, that we have the ability to treat everybody.
Ryan Berman with us here on the Oakland County Megacast. He is the Michigan State Representative for District 39 and recently reelected to the position. Ryan, in your second term, what is on the top of your list to try to get accomplished?
Again, when we're talking about this virus, we're talking about, no matter what it is, school funding, the roads, whatever it is, the top of the list in order to make these decisions, and what I said, talking about data, is transparency. The election, transparency. I'm all about government transparency. That's what I ran on 2 years ago, and that's what I continue to run on. And what my first bill that passed the House was the Legislative Open Records Act. That's still sitting in the Senate, opening up ourselves, the legislature, as well as there's companion bills with the governor's office to our Freedom of Information Act. I'm committed to transparency and making sure that citizens can see where their money is going, what their government is doing, who's being hired by our government, what they're being paid. That's the most important part, what the data, what the numbers are for journalists such as yourself, reporters, being able to get access to information without huge, high monetary barriers for that information. A lot of stuff should just be posted online for everybody to be able to view. So number one is to continue that and to continue my bills. I have another one in the Senate that's going to be voted on the Senate shortly, House Bill 5015, that posts everybody that works for the state government offices, what their position is and how much they're paid. I'm looking forward to that getting passed and continuing with the courts and even local government here, that everybody has open access to government information.
And, a lot of people, I don't think that they realize, first, when you talked about the FOIA, Freedom of Information Act, that is not just for reporters. It's not just for attorneys. It's actually for everyone. And that information is our information. As a citizen, as a taxpayer, that is our information. But one of the things some governments will do is when you put in a FOIA, they will say, okay, we'll release that information. And then I think I got one response to a FOIA maybe in the city of Detroit, and it was going to be like, $3,472. They make this, they just make it a crazy amount of money because they know that you're not going to spend the money in order to pay to get that information. And that is even more important for private individuals as well that do not have an organization or a business behind them that could possibly pony up the money for that FOIA. So just to let everyone know that is your information. It's not necessarily the government's information. So, and with that, Ryan, knowing that going forward, boy, what was it like campaigning during this time versus your first election? Because how were you even able to go door to door in the middle of the COVID crisis?
Yeah, a few observations. One is door to door is always the best, way to introduce yourself to someone, to talk to someone, get in front of them, to let them know who you are, what you're about, and more importantly, what they're about, what they're thinking, their thoughts, and what's important to them. So when I ran in 2018, I went door to door from in the winter, like late January, early February, all the way throughout. I didn't miss a day. It was kind of like a mission of mine, and getting into a routine. But I was only able, I wanted to make sure people were home, people to talk to. I didn't want to just get an empty door. The whole point of doing doors is to talk to people. And so you have a window, maybe 5 to 8 p.m., 5 to 9. During the summer, 5 to 10 when the sun goes down. You only have a few hours. And me, I like to talk to people. And sometimes you spend a half hour, maybe even an hour at one house. It didn't get through a lot necessarily. But this time in a pandemic, how would that work? And it worked. And it was kind of surprising. But before I went out, I sent out a mailer and said, hey, I'm going to continue doing doors. Oh, and last year, even out of election year, I did doors to talk to constituents to see what their concerns are, how they think I'm doing in Lansing, what they want to see, what are their priorities. So I'm still going on the off years. I love meeting people, love talking to people and seeing what's their concerns. So this year, and people are saying, hey, you can't do it. And I've just figured, well, all right, why? Let's figure it out. Why not? I sent out a mailer and said, listen, I'm going to come to your door. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to put my flyer with my contact information on your door. I'll knock or ring the doorbell. Then I'm going to stand back, 6-10 feet, physically safe distance. If you feel comfortable answering your door, love to talk to you. If you don't, no worries. Don't answer your door. Shush me away. I got plenty of that outside of a pandemic, people slamming doors in my face. I get it. But if you're not comfortable, there's no pressure. I don't want to make anybody uncomfortable. I have a mask with me. I have the precautions, whatever's most comfortable for them. And so I traveled, I went out and I did it. and I had an overwhelmingly great response. And what was even better is that people were home, right? I didn't have to go through just 5 to 8. During the middle of the day, people are home. They're working from home. Yeah, a lot of people, majority of time, they're on a conference call. People were liked that I was coming to their door. People, trapped there with their kids, and they didn't have much interaction. They liked to see somebody, a friendly face at their door, and they would talk, and they took advantage of it. I had people who were total proponents and yelling at me about Governor Whitmer and that I was trying to stop her, and they loved the mask mandates. Yet they kept coming closer to me and closer to me, and I would have to back up away from them. It was kind of funny, but people liked that interaction. They still do. I mean, some do, some don't. But I got the credit for coming there, going at their door, even if they shushed me away. But it was the best way, and it's still the best way to introduce myself, let them know the truths out there about me, my positions, and really what concerns them.
Ryan Berman with us. We so appreciate your time. Congratulations on your re-election, and we hope to have you back on the show again. So we know you're busy and you have a crazy schedule, but we appreciate the time. Ryan Berman with us here on the Oakland County Megacast. Tyler and I are going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll be speaking with the president for the Bloomfield Hills School District Board of Education. This is the Oakland County Megacast.
Michigan, we still need to stay careful because we don't want to go backwards, back to where we started. So keep standing 6 feet apart. Keep wearing a mask in public. And if you have symptoms, talk to a healthcare provider about getting tested. To move forward, let's all do our part. So stay careful. Michigan.gov/coronavirus. Michigan, we're calling on you to save lives. Don't ignore it. Don't let it go to voicemail. It's urgent. In fact, it's critical. Because if you've been in close contact with someone who tests positive for COVID-19, you may have been exposed to the virus. And you could get a call from My COVID Help or your local health department. So please answer the call to learn how to protect yourself, your family, and friends. We're calling on you to stop the spread of COVID-19, to make it safe to reopen businesses and help Michigan move forward. So if you get a call from My COVID Help or your local health department, you may have been exposed to someone with COVID-19. To protect us all, answer the call. Learn more at michigan.gov/containcovid. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
Great to have you with us on the Friday edition of the Oakland County Megacast. As the numbers continue to surge here in the state of Michigan, more and more schools are opting to go remote yet again as we try to ride out this new storm of COVID-19. Joining us now on the Oakland County Megacast is Paul Colen. He is the president for the Bloomfield Hills School District Board of Education. What a tough time and tough decisions being made by not only your school district, but all of the area school districts right now. How are you doing today?
Good. Yeah, it's a real tough time right now for like you said, all school districts. We closed down our schools on Friday. We had an emergency special board meeting because of where our metrics were. We know our surrounding districts, Birmingham just closed their schools. We know Detroit just closed their schools. When I mean closed their schools, they went instead of in person to 100% virtual or remote. So yeah, a lot's going on right now, as you can imagine.
And I know it's not an easy decision, and there are a lot of factors that go into those decisions, but for the parents that are left scrambling to try to find childcare, what is your answer to them when they're trying to navigate this crazy world as well?
Yeah, it's difficult, and one of the things that we talked about, our special meeting on Friday was 3.5 hours, and we've had 7-hour, 8-hour meetings. One of the discussions we were talking about is what can we do as a district, to help those families? We are very empathetic, especially, for those working families, families with special needs, especially the working families that have child care issues. So one of the things, we were talking about is there a way to open up, because our buildings officially are not shut. The governor has not shut our buildings down. Is there a way to offer that even though students are going remote, where we have our buildings and paraprofessionals, with our students that are, learning remote, so we can ease that burden from the parents. I mean, that's something that, this is why all these decisions are difficult. It's difficult for the working families, difficult for students with special needs that, just learning on a computer is just not working. So that's why, board meetings that used to be an hour, hour and a half, and now just on this topic alone are going anywhere from 6 to 9 hours into the night. I mean, we had a board meeting months ago that ended up at 2 o'clock in the morning. It started at 6 o'clock at night. So it's just, it's difficult decisions. We're getting a bunch of public comment, from our community. I must read on average now close to an hour and a half to 2 hours minimum of public comment from our community expressing some of the concerns you just went through.
On one side, I guess it's good to see so many people are getting involved on the local decisions being made on the school board level, but also, our county commissioners and our local elected leaders. So it's good that they are being engaged. However, when it's taking that much time, is it also hard for you to move into the next step and try to address the next problem?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of everything that we're doing as a district, has been put on hold because we're going through, we spend, all of our time, researching, and one of the things that, I'm sure all board members, including our board, we do not want to be is health professionals. And, we have obviously Oakland Health, we have, in Lansing, they have a health department. And what we're being forced to do is analyze all this data and become health professionals. And, I'm sure everyone would like that taken away, from us, and then decisions being made at a county or a state level. And for us not to analyze tons and tons of data or metrics, and determining, in terms of what's safe, it's not safe. So, and again, like you said, we're spending, including our superintendent, hours upon hours when we should be focusing on educating our kids, on trying to be health experts.
Paul Colen with us here on the Oakland County Megacast. He's the president for the Bloomfield Hills School District Board of Education. They just decided to go 100% virtual as of Friday as the district due to this surge in cases here in the state of Michigan, as well as in the Oakland County area as well. What is the next step? How long do you anticipate being completely remote, and when will you revisit the discussion to possibly go back to some type of hybrid situation?
Yeah, our board and our superintendent, again, just because, we've made a decision, we need to, the first thing that we probably need to look at is the metrics that we used in August to determine, that schools, would go 100% remote. I mean, things change, as rapidly every day. So, what study we used in August, may be outdated as of today, looking at, other data in terms of are there outbreaks happening in schools, how safe is schools. So what we're looking at as a board is, do we need to update our metrics? And then, looking at, different sort of metrics and determining, as we all want, not just our district, but every district across the state of Michigan wants to provide a safe educational opportunity for all of our students. So everyone's goal is to get students back in school as safe as possible, as early as possible. And that's what our board's doing. And and I'm close to other board members from, surrounding districts in the state of Michigan. That's what everyone wants to do. And that is our goal. So we're not just sitting on our decision on Friday. We are constantly working with our superintendent. He's working with his team to determine, how can we get students back in the buildings.
I know that earlier I was on your website and for the school district, and I will say I thought it was great that you were putting up information for your schools in your district. There was a dashboard there talking about COVID and how many cases, and a lot of information for parents because a lot of this has to do with transparency. And I think it's great that your district is already doing that and trying to be as transparent as possible with all the parents and the students as you continue to navigate this crazy, crazy world that we are in right now. Can we talk a little bit about sports? Are the teams still playing right now, and any decision about the winter sports going forward?
Yeah, so right now, the decision right now is, that is done by the MHSAA. So sports are continuing in our district as of today, and that would be a decision that obviously a board can override, but as of today, sports is being mandated by, we're going with the decision of MHSAA, and the governor's office in terms of sports is happening. So as of today, sports is still happening in our district, winter sports, and according to the MHSAA guidelines, is going to be kicking off, normal. So our winter sports teams right now, they're practicing right now. They're making cuts for our winter sports teams, and that's, still moving forward as of today.
Paul Colen joining us on the Oakland County Megacast. He is the president of the Bloomfield Hills School District Board of Education with us today on the program. And Paul, in terms of planning for going forward, you talk a little bit about some of the things that need to be considered or reconsidered at the board level, at the district level, in order to continue making these decisions. With that being the case, and with the surge that we're seeing right now being what it is, what plans are in place or are being discussed in terms of next semester and potentially through the end of the school year, if any, for certain rites of passages like honors nights and graduations and stuff like that?
Yeah, what we did last year, and we're probably going to do that this year. We're 100% remote, but we made sure we provided all those opportunities. So last year, for our graduation, as an example, we had a drive-in graduation where we tried best we could, in a safe way to provide those opportunities. We had honors night. It was a virtual honors night. I'm on another organization, Bloomfield Youth Existence, where we recognize students in our community. We had a virtual recognition award. So, what we've done across the district, and again, we've done this with graduations. We've looked at all of those opportunities or things that happen, and how can we do it in the best way, safest way possible to recognize our students. Everything that we're doing in the district, everything our board and superintendent, who's great, is focused on what can we do for those students. And if we can't do it live because of, where we are in terms of the virus, what we'll do is we'll do it virtually. We'll do it the best way that we can. And we did it last year, and we'll do it again.
Back at the beginning of the school year, one thing we were hearing about, like people Zoom bombing some of the classrooms or the kids Zoom bombing one another. Are you having or hearing about any of those situations in your school district?
It's happened, but our technology team is great. So we've updated all of our security measures to avoid that happening again. So once that happened, it goes to our technology team, who quickly pivots. And what they do is they update the security system. So, we realize, going virtual, there's, a lot of challenges that we need to do. That's one of them. Second is, we have students who have individual education plans or IEPs, students with special needs. How can we continue to give those services to those students as well while they're being remote? So what our team, led by our superintendent, his team in central office, and all of our teachers administration have done is an incredible job to again try to provide the best education in this environment that we can, and that's our goal here in Bloomfield Hills. And I'm sure that's the goal of every district across Michigan right now.
As far as the number of students in your district, is there a concern or are there discussions about the possibility of students leaving and maybe going completely remote with some of these other programs that are out there, because that could have an impact on your budget?
Oh, it's not just that. I mean, if you realize our district is surrounded by private schools as well. So there's two things we're worried about. Private schools have gone 100% full and face-to-face. So we're at risk of losing not just students to those virtual remote programs, we're at risk of losing students to go to private schools. And a lot have already reached out because, that learning online just, it doesn't work for them. So, parents already put their names on waiting lists. We have lost some families to neighboring private schools because private schools are going 100% face-to-face and we're not. And that is a concern that we have, and that's something that, not just us, but other districts are going to have to address. Us more so because we are surrounded by private schools like Cranbrook, the Christ Country Day, St. Mary's. I can name, 5 to 10 of them. And that's something that we are very conscious of.
And just to follow up on that, Paul, with that being the case, what can the school district do to try to maintain having those students on their role in the Bloomfield Hills School District instead of jumping to these private institutions because they want that in-person learning, if there's anything that can be done at all?
Yeah, I mean, the one thing we can say is, yes, there's all these stories that, students are going, private, face-to-face, 5 full days. When we were at hybrid, we were offering our core instruction in the morning and then afternoon, some of our specials. Again, during this, it's very, very difficult, to compete, with private schools that are offering that because they're tuition-based. Of course, they're going to offer, those opportunities because they don't want to lose the tuition. But what I can say is when we all go through this, and we want those families to come back, going, through our district, gives our students as much, if not more opportunities than they would get in the private schools. So it's difficult to compete with that, from if parents or families want face-to-face 5 days a week, we can't compete with that. But what I will say is if we can get through this, and we all will, and we all know we will eventually, coming back to our district, we'll offer them as many, if not more opportunities than anyone will get at private schools.
Just a couple more minutes here with you on the Oakland County Megacast. Anything you want to touch on before we let you go that maybe we didn't bring up?
No, I mean, the one thing, just for, not just for me, but for all school boards, again, the goal is to get everyone back in school. Our job is to educate students in the safest way possible. So, one thing that people may not assume is, our school board and most school boards in the district administration, we are trying, we're working around the clock to figure out a way how we can get our students back in the buildings in the safest way possible. So just because we had a meeting on Friday, and we went through and we went 100% remote, doesn't mean across our district between the teachers, the administration, our superintendent, and the board, we are not, reading stuff, updating stuff, and thinking around the clock on how we can get students back into buildings as quick as possible, as safe as possible.
Well, we appreciate your time and all the work that you and the other board members and the superintendent are doing. It's not an easy decision, and I know a lot of thought goes into making these decisions. So thank you for your time. We appreciate it, and good luck to you and your team. Stay safe and stay healthy. Tyler and I are going to take a quick break here on the Oakland County Megacast, just about 20 minutes left in the show. And when we come back, we'll be speaking to the chairman for the Historic Fort Wayne Coalition. This is the Oakland County Megacast.
Michigan, we're calling on you to save lives. Don't ignore it. Don't let it go to voicemail. It's urgent. In fact, it's critical. Because if you've been in close contact with someone who tests positive for COVID-19, you may have been exposed to the virus. And you could get a call from My COVID Help or your local health department. So please answer the call to learn how to protect yourself, your family, and friends. We're calling on you to stop the spread of COVID-19, to make it safe to reopen businesses and help Michigan move forward. So if you get a call from My COVID Help or your local health department, you may have been exposed to someone with COVID-19. To protect us all, answer the call. Learn more at michigan.gov/containcovid. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jonae Khaldun. I'm the Chief Medical Executive for the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. The people who are at highest risk of getting severely ill from COVID-19 are the elderly and those with chronic medical conditions. That includes people with heart disease, diabetes, COPD, or those who have compromised immune systems. People who are in those categories should right now be staying at home as much as possible and not going out if it is not essential. If you fit into one of those categories, those are the things you should do. And if you have a family member who fits into one of those categories, you should be checking in on them and making sure they are following those guidelines. There's something everyone can do to protect the community from COVID-19.
Great to have you with us on the Friday edition of the Oakland County Megacast. We have so much rich history right here in our own backyards. And one of those areas in the city of Detroit, I think some people don't know that it is there, and that is the historic Fort Wayne out there on the city's, I believe it's the east side. I've been there a few times. Joining us right now on the Oakland County Megacast, Thomas Berlucci. He's the chairman for the Historic Fort Wayne Coalition. Thank you for being with us on the Oakland County Megacast.
Well, thank you for having us.
For those not familiar with the fort, what do you want to share with them?
Well, this is probably one of your greatest historical sites in the state of Michigan, a decommissioned military site, but the history of the site of this particular part of our river goes all the way back to the Woodland Indian era and before. So the history is so rich in this area.
And also joining us on the Oakland County Megacast is going to be Will Eichler. He is the vice chairman for the organization, for the coalition. Thank you again for being with us as well. Are you open to visitors at all right now?
We're at a point in the fall where no matter what, we would be closed for the season. We're typically open from beginning of spring through mid-fall on the weekends.
So are you doing anything virtual for the public? A lot of nonprofits and a lot of organizations have taken their message to their website or to social media. Any changes in that regard for your organization?
As far as changes, no. We continue to have an active website, historicfortwaynecoalition.com, and our public presence on Facebook can be found on a page called Historic Fort Wayne Events, which we keep updated with upcoming events as much as we know about what we can do in the COVID environment and historical tidbits as we go forward.
If we can just shift the conversation back to you, Mr. Berlucci, knowing that, what is this? So many kids are having to learn remotely right now. What will they learn if they go over to your website? Is it a good educational tool for parents or teachers?
I believe so. We have some very good historical data that's on the website. We also have a link where you can actually tour the site and see some of the buildings by just clicking on the buildings on the maps. The website is geared toward providing information and helping them contact us also. We have our contact info, and we can assist, especially moving forward through the COVID period with the educational programming.
I know you rely a lot on volunteers to help in your mission. How has this been working in the middle of a pandemic as far as volunteers?
Well, I have to say I'm extremely proud of our volunteer organization. All of us are volunteers. Myself and Will, we've been there, pretty much from the get-go, 20 years ago starting. And I'll tell you, just to date, the amount of hours that the volunteers put on site during a pandemic was over 6,204 hours. That would equate almost to 3 full-time employees.
Wow, so volunteers are critical to preserving and maintaining the fort there on West Jefferson. How about fundraising and the bottom line? Because I would imagine it's kind of hard to get money right now.
Oh, absolutely, and that is, we are critical at this point in our financial. We do usually about 23 to 25 events that we fundraise on site. This is where we get all the money. We don't do anything off site. It's all through events, donations, memberships. As the COVID has shut us down, we had to cancel our entire 2019 programs. site was open on the weekends. People could walk around. They could only see the post, which is everything but the Star Fort. We had no restrooms, no drinking fountains or anything available, but it was open as a park for people to come through on Saturdays and Sundays. As Will stated, we are closed for the season now. We will reopen the first weekend of May, and our hours are from 10 to 4. So that's where we generate our revenue, is on site. So we've been hurt dramatically. We actually have a GoFundMe account page to help us, because we are still operating fully down there, maintaining and preserving the site.
Thomas,
and if I can jump in for just a second and add one thing to what Tom said.
Sure.
Question about fundraising, and Tom's a little modest. Tom and James Conway and Dave Jamroz and a few other of our members have large historic backgrounds and a strong background as public speakers. The one thing we do off-site is if a group wants us to come and give a presentation about the history of the fort, or through Dave Jamroz, who's a retired lieutenant colonel in the Army and a West Point graduate, the West Point connection to the fort, those things happen. And occasionally by speakers honorarium, we do a little bit of fundraising as well.
Thomas Berlucci and Will Eichler with us on the Oakland County Megacast, the chairman and vice chairman of the historic Fort Wayne Coalition in Michigan. And with that being the case, with the funding being so far down this year because of COVID-19, you mentioned Thomas that there is a GoFundMe page that is currently up to help support the coalition. What other efforts, if any, are being made or being discussed further to make up the remainder, or some of the remainder, of that excess funding that is needed for the coalition this year? And about how far back is the coalition on their usual annual funds, so that the public knows just how much help the coalition needs?
Oh, great questions. We are struggling because we do everything on site. We're struggling to move off site to try to find some kind of fundraising programs that we can host. But as you know, with the COVID restrictions and that going on, it is very difficult to create these kind of environments that, with safe social distancing, masks, everything required. So we're basically doing it now just through our GoFundMe account, our membership, and we're struggling to make ends meet that way. We have put together a team just recently, and it's just in the last few days actually, for fundraising ideas and what to do moving forward. And we will be putting that on our website as we start to create the events that we can generate funds from. The funds are vital to our survival moving into 2021, especially with the uncertainty of what's going to open when, as COVID, we keep our fingers crossed, starts to reduce. So funding is utmost, and the GoFundMe page right now, please help us. I mean, we normally operate around $41,000 a year, and we are down to our last few $1,000s. So if you can understand, 43 buildings, 1841 Star Fort, basically 78 acres of grass, trees. We maintain all of that. We do grass, tree removals, houses, branches. It's very, very time consuming, and to say 6,204 hours just over the last summer spent on site doing this kinds of work. It's put in it. We haven't been able to do our educational programming. That was all canceled. We bring fourth graders in from Detroit Public Schools. We bring in school tours, the Boy Scouts of America, the Girl Scouts of America, they all come. We have camporees, We have troops staying. And one of the proudest things that I have to say is just yesterday I approved our 55th Eagle Scout project on the site.
Wow, so it's so much history and, to be learned there at the fort, but also helping shape our future generations as well. And if we can bring you in here for just a moment, what is your bottom line operating cost, and what happens if you don't get the money needed to keep going?
Bottom line numbers. I don't have the budget right in front of me just now, but Tom does. He can answer specific to numbers. It's just a matter of for us, we don't make the numbers, we don't go as far. Volunteer hours are fantastic, but if you don't make the payment on the tractor, and we've put capital projects on the site, or larger projects on the site, like paying for machinery to be able to do this lawn maintenance. If there's not money, there's not gas to go into those machines, and that becomes an issue through the fall and winter. Not such a big thing, but as we get to spring and the grass starts to grow again, that affects the look of the place. And something has been jokingly said down there, for years, which is not a joke. The definition is deferred maintenance. If we don't stay up on this stuff, catching up is going to be a real monumental task.
So, Will, for those that have never been there to visit the site, why is it important to keep this gym here in our community?
Well, you've got a spot along the Detroit River that has seen part of our, not just American history, but our region's history. As Tom says, going back, when we work with Wayne State anthropology, we talk about the Middle Woodland period that is 750 AD. We are caretakers on the site of the last in the area Native American burial mound. It's the cemetery for some of the First Nations. It's been invaded several times, but this is the remaining example, and that's fenced and cared for. There's some argument the first shots of the War of 1812 might have been fired from this site across to Sandwich, Canada, because we're at the narrow spot in the river. And then you can talk about American military history, with the fort being built in the 1840s, coming into service at the beginning of the Civil War, and not going out of service until the end of Vietnam. There are so many people's stories, whether you're guarding the fort, whether you're serving at the fort, or whether you're somebody from a First Nation or a civilian who is part of a military family enduring at the fort.
And with that, Tom, you've been a part of this organization for quite some time. As you mentioned, it is an educational facility as well, where you try to reach out to some fourth graders there in the city of Detroit. When you're sharing with them the history and some of these stories, what has been the reaction from some of the kids, and how has that impacted you and to keep going and to keep this gym here in our community?
Well, that's a great question, and I will say this. Our paycheck, and I mean every volunteer down there, and including any city members that when they are working with us also, is seeing the little people, the kids, tugging at their mom's shirts or blouses and saying, "I don't want to go. I want to stay. I want to see this." That's our paycheck. And to see the wonderful reception, and they absorb. That's the key. They absorb their education of history. This is a place where you can come and put your hand on it and feel your history. When you feel the Star Fort, as Will says, it's starting from the 1840s. You come in and we have some artifacts that we've brought out for the public. The base of the flagpole from Fort Shelby, which is the second fort built in Detroit's history, which dates back to the Revolutionary period. You have cannonballs in a tree that were Confederate overshot on the Michigan positions during the Battle of Chickamauga. So we have different unique experiences for the children, and so they get to put their hands on it. So when they go back into the classrooms, they're excited to learn history. It's not just a bunch of dates anymore. It actually means something. They were able to feel it, to see it.
Well, we so hope that you get to reopen to the public soon, and the kids can come back and experience history, because it's like you said, when you're actually there and you're standing in the very spot where history was made here, not only in the city of Detroit, but the state of Michigan as well. It is quite an experience. Quickly, before we let you go, what's the GoFundMe page?
It is, and I'm sorry, I don't have that right here in front of me, but if you go to GoFundMe, you can find us on, just type in Historic Fort Wayne Coalition, and it'll bring you right to the GoFundMe page for us.
Well, thank you both for being with us here on the Friday edition of the Oakland County Megacast. We appreciate your time, and we appreciate all the work that you're doing to keep the fort open as well. And good luck with your GoFundMe campaign. That's going to wrap it up for the Friday edition of the Oakland County Megacast. Stay safe, stay healthy, and have a great weekend.